Right guys, so I'm set up and I'm ready. I'm waiting on the kettle to boil inside. Grab my coffee and we're going to start this discussion. So I just want to say that there is no hard and fast rule that says you have to start your own seeds. In all honesty, you can go out to your local nursery, see what they have in stock and what's coming into season, and buy yourself already started plants. And in all honesty, that's an absolute time saver. But there is a little bit of a wonder to starting your own seeds. So consider maybe when you do go out and buy those seedling starts that you purchase a few seeds yourself, and maybe consider direct sowing them and trying your hand at that, because there is a little bit of magic to coming out and seeing that your little seeds have sprouted. Right, as far as starting your seeds and how you start them and what you start them in, I start many of my seeds in these little seed trays, which are recycled. I've gotten these from the nursery where I've bought starts already, and then I just repurpose them. I like these ones in particular because it's a 4-cell and the cell is quite wide. So it allows me to plant bigger plants or plants that have more vigorous root systems in here without them outgrowing the tray before I'm ready for them in the garden. So I do use a fair amount of these. As I got more into gardening, I actually splurged a little and bought a bigger tray, and as you can see, it's got fairly deep cells, which I prefer, as well as it's on a very rigid piece of plastic, so they don't wear and tear as easily as some of the more affordable options would do. There are times where I'm also planting out into little containers of things that we have received before. For instance, this used to be a sweet basil tub, and it will probably go to propagate something else this season. I don't even splurge on fancy labels. Sometimes I make them out of my milk bottles, and sometimes I just buy the plastic tags and I use them in rotation as I need them. Lastly, I have a couple of these tubs. I literally have 2 of them and I rotate through them. I've just taken the onions out of here and I will be starting leeks in here. And what I do is I densely seed them across the surface, and then I cover them with soil and I just allow them to grow on the potting bench. You will find as you buy your seeds and you start like picking up on the little things like the instructions on the back or the guidelines, the planting guidelines, that for some plants it's actually more beneficial for you to direct sow them. And direct sowing means that you are planting the seed where it will actually be growing, and you won't have to transplant it or plant it out. Right, so before we jump into what varietals you can grow or what plants would best suit your family, let's first look at the difference between starting your own seeds and starting seedlings. There are pros and cons, and there are things you need to take into account. So firstly, if you're buying seedlings, you are essentially at the will of your nursery. You can only buy the varieties that they've planted, which means you're generally going to get your stock standard varieties of vegetables. You're going to get broccoli, you're going to get a white cauliflower, you're going to get some Fort Hook Swiss giant, maybe if you're lucky some bright lights. The variety is a little bit limited, and that's purely from a production point of view. Unfortunately, it's just not viable to grow a lot of vegetable starts for things people won't necessarily enjoy or are not likely to buy. However, if you are buying a tray of seeds, generally they do not come with any information, so then it is my advice, invest in some good reading material. So this is not sponsored. I like the Grow to Eat magazine because they give you a yearly breakdown of what you can grow in your garden. So this is last year's magazine, it's the 2023, but it is the autumn winter edition. Essentially what they offer is a breakdown of what to grow in each particular month. There's a March, April, May through to July. So they're giving you the autumn winter planting guidelines, and a lot of the time they include little helpful tips and tricks on the inside and these nifty little blocks so that you can make notes, so that next year you could just grab your magazine off the shelf, see where you went, and make the necessary alterations. Learn about the plants that you're going to plant. Like, just read up a little bit so that you have a better understanding of the plant that you are planting, especially if you've never done it before. Right, so I don't want to give you complete information overload, but I do want to make sure that you've got as much information as possible going into starting your seeds. So what I've done is I've actually pulled up some seed packages just to show you the information that each seed package offers. And what I've done is I've actually used 3 South African or local brands just to show you the information that each packet gives you. Start off with this Kirchhoff package. This is a Copenhagen market cabbage. It's got the cabbage and the varietal at the bottom, and then on the back of your seed package it gives you quite a few growing instructions and guidelines, things that will help you along the way. For instance, this particular seed package tells you that it requires the sun, so it needs to be in an area that gets at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day, and that it is a spring and autumn sowing plant, which is fantastic. It also highlights the different spacings that you require, and it tells you how many days till germination. Next up, I've got Linda's Original Seeds, and you can get these at Sought After Seedlings. They are an online store. Linda is very helpful and friendly, and their seeds are really nice. They are heirloom varieties as far as I'm aware. So on her package she actually gives you the same planting guidelines as you would on the Kirchhoff seeds. However, she does often include a little bit of extra information that makes your planting go a little bit easier. So on Linda's seeds here, it tells us that these are an early spring, autumn and winter crop. Actually a little bit later down, further down on the package, it's explained that you can actually in fact grow this variety of kale in summer. It'll just produce a much smaller plant, which obviously means that you are getting less produce out. Here I've got these Garden Master pansy seeds, and I actually have never grown this brand of seeds before. I was gifted them by a friend, but they are very informative seed packs, and I'm going to explain this to you now as a South African and why it excites me. So in this particular seed, it tells you it requires sun and it can survive in a semi-shaded area, so that works out in your favor if you are looking to plant something pretty for the pollinators. Pansies will grow both in full sun as well as in the semi-shade. Then this is the part that really excites me. This particular brand of seeds, because they are local, have actually put the provinces on the back of their seed pack, and that allows you to see more or less which areas receive frost and which areas do not, and they have shaded it in on the key of this particular map. It shows us is if you live in a frost free area, which is the pale blue, you can plant these seeds all year round. But if you have a frosting area, or an area that gets frost, then you can only plant in certain times of the year. So for this particular flower, we are able to plant it in autumn, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So if you are going to start seeds, remember to read the guidelines that you find on the back of your seed packet. They can be very informative, and you can always just Google your area and when your first expected frost date is, and you can work back from there. Now this is a little bit of a tricky thing. So essentially what it is your estimated frost date is the first day you are expecting your garden to get frost, where it's going to get cold enough that the temperature drops below 0 degrees. I am fortunate enough to live in an area where frost is not necessarily a risk for me. We are still cautious, but for instance, last year we didn't get a frost at all, but the year before we did. So we are mindful that we could get frost, and we do monitor the weather, but ultimately that is dependent on your like individual microclimate, what it's like in your garden. So some of the things you can grow this season are brassicas. Now, brassica is an umbrella term for a multitude of different varieties, but for us specifically this year, we are growing broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and kale. Kale, we are trying in 2 varieties. We're going to do dino kale, which is our tried and tested and true. We love it. It's not for everybody, but Duncan and I do like to eat it, and we eat it both raw as well as cooked. But this year we're adding something new in, and that is scarlet kale. So the scarlet kale, I actually got the seeds from Living Seeds, and they too have a very informative seed pack, and it actually comes along with a key that makes it easier for you to understand what each of the little icons are on your seed packet, and they generally give you quite a nice little write-up about the different variety of seeds that you're going to get. Then as far as root vegetables go, these make up predominantly our direct sown crops, and they will go in probably within the next 2 weeks of planting. I definitely don't want to be planting too many seeds over the winter, like for instance carrots. If the soil is not the right temperature, they will not germinate. As far as root veggies go, this year we are growing broccoli and carrots, turnips and parsnips. I have tried parsnips once before and they took forever to grow, but I'm going to give them another shot because I genuinely like them, and I want them for my soup mixes, because I remember as a kid when my mom used to buy the supermarket soup pack, you would always get one massive turnip, a couple of carrots, some leeks, some celery, and generally a parsnip. So because that is my childhood memory, I actually try and grow all my own soup ingredients so that it tastes like home, essentially. It never does, because I'm pretty sure my mum put something secret in there, but I can get it as close as possible, and hopefully with my own homegrown organic vegetables. I have my miscellaneous seeds, and they're not really miscellaneous. They are just vegetables that other people don't necessarily grow that frequently, or they don't fit under the brassica or root vegetable classification. So I'll be growing things like peas. This year I'm growing 2 varieties of peas. I'm going to be trying my luck with the green feast peas. I love them. However, Mary also likes these peas, so I've got to be sneaky about where I grow them, and because else she breaks into my garden and she pulls my plants down, and then I go through shock and trauma and devastation, and I want to kill her, but then I remember that I love her and I can't actually do that. So this year I'm hedging my bets and I'm giving myself 2 varietals. I'm going for my OG, the green feast, because I love them and I like shelling peas, as well as these snow peas that my mother-in-law bought for me. She actually brought these from America from my sister-in-law, so I'm really excited to try these. And they are a dwarf pea, so I'm going to try some of these in containers, and I'm also going to plant a few of these in the garden, maybe just out of Mary's reach, and if she can't see them growing, she might be less likely to try and eat them. Then as far as the remainder of the seeds, they are direct sown, so those will be things like broad beans, which I'll be sowing towards the end of March because I want the warmth of the day to let them grow, but I want them to grow slowly over the winter period so that they are ready to essentially provide in spring when we generally hit our hunger gap in the garden. Hey guys, so I know today was not our typical adventure through the garden, but I do want to say thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope that this information inspires you to start a garden and gives you the confidence you need, because in all honesty it's not too late to start a garden. Give it a shot, see what you can grow, make nice food with it, and feel accomplished. Thanks guys for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.